and welcome to the Coaching Minute. So today we're going to talk about delegating with clarity. Everyone agrees that delegating is a great idea, yet this is one of those skills that is very hard to be good at. And so what I'm going to teach you today is the exact same content that I teach my executive coaching clients, the leaders that I work with, the cohort leaders that I work with, and everyone seems to be blown away by how effective these little tweaks are. So we're going to go more than a minute today. We're going to go a few like 5 to 7 minutes so that you really come away with some techniques to change how you delegate. So the first thing is you really have to gauge the level of skill and expertise of the person that you're delegating to. If they're a beginner or they're not performing very well on a task or a responsibility that they thought they could or would or promised that they knew about, then you have to kind of dial it back and you have to have more training and coaching and teaching as part of your delegation. You can't just delegate the responsibility and expect them to follow through. They can't do it. And sometimes they have that, they're not conscious of their inability. And so you have to point that out as well. But let's assume that you are delegating to somebody who has great potential and yet somehow it just hasn't been a successful engagement with you delegating. One of the things that I think we forget is that it's okay to define success for that person. Yes, you should delegate responsibility versus just tasks, but you also have to define what success looks like to you. That's how you set the person up for success. And so I think that sometimes we think, well, we're being too selective or people should be allowed to do things in their own way. That's true, but you already have a very specific idea in mind of what success looks like. So why not share that with the person? So delegation then sounds something like, I'm going to give you this event to handle. It's one of the most important events for our customer team of the year. And I want to tell you what success looks like to me. Then we can talk again in 2 weeks about what your plan is, how you plan to execute. It can be different than my ideas, but I do want to make sure that you understand. And then let's set some timelines. If I don't hear back from you after our initial connection, I'm going to assume you are on time, you are underway, and that you don't need any help. But obviously, if you do need help, I'm here for you. Okay, another thing that I think leaders feel like it's sort of inappropriate to do, but it's so appropriate, is to tell people what you're quirky about. So I'll give you an example. I have a team of contractors that I've worked with for a very long time. I am extremely quirky about sending correction emails. And so I have an abnormal response to this. I don't want to crowd people's inbox. I don't want to add to the noise. And when a mistake is made, I literally go bonkers in my own little mind because I don't want to bother people or double the amount of email they have. And so because of that, I'm really clear about everyone who sends out emails to my groups or my women's groups or my leadership groups or my readership like you, so that we can try as much as possible not to make a mistake that we have to correct. I have an abnormal reaction to that, but that's my quirk. And anyone who knows me and works with me has to know that. And so as you think about delegation, think about what you're really fussy about, and you can share that with the person that you're delegating with. Okay, so what do you do if all this happens, but the delegation doesn't really come through? Now you need to move into a feedback experience with this person to say, okay, this was something that I was really counting on. Somehow we had a miscommunication, or somehow our wires got crossed and it did not happen. We are now the day before our deadline. I'm looking at the deck. I see a lot of mistakes. So talk to me about how far you've gotten and what you think took us off track, right? So you're being very clear. You're still being very supportive, but now you're in a place where you're going to have to take something back, which is the worst possible outcome, but sometimes it happens that way. So to wrap things up, if you find that you're delegating and people are like, everyone's letting you down and nobody can do it right, and you have to do it yourself after all, you have to look to yourself and your own communication strategies around delegation. Make sure that you're delegating responsibility, not just tasks, because that's micromanaging. Even if the person needs other people to help them execute on that responsibility, they still have to own it. And things don't really change. People don't really grow until they own that responsibility. Make sure you define what success looks like. Tell them what you're picky and quirky about, and set timelines to follow up. I hope that was helpful, and I look forward to hearing how you utilize this new skill.